Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava भक्ति वैष्णविंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण को गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome for today's class. It's Brother Saradiya, Devi, Dasi here. Today we'll be hearing from His High Grace Saradiya Devi Dasi from South Africa.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother. You're welcome.
Thank you. I think I must just change my webcam because I think you're not seeing me at the moment. There I am.
I will see you.
Now you can see me. And can
Thank
you
you.
hear me clearly?
Yeah, it's okay. You're welcome. We can hear you clearly, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Everything,
Yes.
everything's okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. You're welcome from South Africa, Cape Town, right?
Yes, all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. So firstly, I want to say thank you very much for asking me to speak this morning. I feel very grateful, and I'm also just aware that there's probably many devotees in the audience that are very much my senior in terms of not only their age, but also their realization. But I know that even when Prabhupada was present, he did ask his disciples to speak. So please think about me as your think about me as your daughter, and please pray for me and send me your blessings so I can speak something meaningful this morning.
You are welcome so much. Thank you very much. So I will put the sloka on the verse and you can start, please.
We can start. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you, Kamania. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Javai Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vasyam Tato Jayam Uduryate Nashta Prayusa Abreshu Nityam Bhagata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. All right, so the verse for today, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam and we're in Canto 1, Chapter 8, and it is the famous prayers of Queen Kunti, and we're reading verse number 17. Brahma Tejo Vinir Mukter Atmajaha Saha Krishnaya Prayana Bimukam Krishnam Idam Aha Prita Sati. So, Prabhu, I'm not sure how you usually do that. Do we want to give other devotees a chance to chant the verse?
Anyhow you want. If you want us to chant, we do. If not, you can just go ahead as you wish.
We can give, if anyone wants to chant, I have to confess my Sanskrit pronunciation is not great, but if anyone else would like to chant the verse before we continue.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Brahma Tejo Vine Mukte Atmaja Saha Krishnaya Payana Bimuktam Krishnam Hidam Aha Preta Sati. Anyone else?
Brahma Tejo Vinir Muktair Atma Jaha Saha Krishnaya Prayana bhimukam Krishnam idam aha pritasati.
Brahma Tejo Vini Muktai Atma Jai Saha Krishnaya Prayana Bhimukam Krishnam Idam Aha Pritasati.
Synonyms,
Right,
please.
so
Yeah.
not sure there's any more volunteers, so we'll continue. Brahma Teja, the radiation of the Brahmastra. Vinirmuktahi, being saved from. Atma Jahi, along with her sons. Saha, with. Krishnaya, Draupadi. Prayana, outgoing. Abhimukam, towards. Krishnam, unto Lord Krishna. Idam, this. Aha, said. Pritaha, Kunti. Sati, chaste, devoted to the Lord. Thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons, Draupadi, addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. Purport. Kunti is described here as sati or chaste due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Sri Krishna. Her mind will now be expressed in the following prayers for Lord Krishna. A chaste devotee of the Lord does not look to others, namely any other living being or demigod, even for deliverance from danger. That was also along the characteristics of the whole family of the Pandavas. They knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was also always ready to help them in all respects, in all circumstances. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord. He reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. One should not, therefore, look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods, but one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. Such a chaste devotee also never asks the Lord for help, but the Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. So I found this verse very inspiring, because I especially like the parts of the Bhagavatam where we hear, or we hear what is the mind of a devotee, what is going on in the heart of a devotee, and the section which follows is the prayers of Queen Kunti. So I was thinking about this. Why do we study Shastra to begin with? And as I work in education, I'm aware that any form of education that we receive is essentially to change the way we perceive things. So for instance, if we take the example of a child which just goes outside and plays in the garden, and they have no distinction between plants. They'll see a flower, but they won't even know it's a plant. I mean, they will know it's a plant, but they won't know it's a flower. So then a parent will teach the child that this is a flower. The next time the child goes to a park, they might see another flower and then recognize, oh, that is a flower. But then if you have an artist and they see a flower, the flower has taken on a whole nother meaning, because they might see the colors, the shades. It might remind them of a famous artist, say like Monet or Van Gogh, who painted flowers. So we can see, because they've had other education, they have ideas which then transforms the same experience of just seeing the flower. And then if you had a botanist, they would see the same flower and they would know what is this, what is the particular species of flower. They might know which family it comes from. They might have so many details which an ordinary person would not have. So again, showing how that education they had changed the vision. So of course we read Shastra because we want to understand philosophy, but we also want to understand the worldview of a devotee, because gradually we want to get to the point where we see Krishna. Like Prabhupada says, an advanced devotee only sees Krishna everywhere. So through the studying of the scripture, we progressively develop this vision. Now I find it very interesting, this little quote from Prabhupada, where it says, unless one is able to see everything in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. So that means when we start our spiritual journey, that is the beginning. We start distinguishing between what is matter and what is spirit. And then we try to progress to actually see, that things are related to the Lord. We see at, even everything material is the external energy of the Lord. We know that there is a connection. It's coming from him. Then we can go further and we can see that, Krishna is, as he says in Bhagavad Gita, he is the light of the sun and the moon. Of purifiers, he is the wind. In another place, he says that the mountains, are his bones. So we can get to that level where we start seeing everything as a manifestation of Krishna. But then what we ultimately want to get to is not just seeing everything as somehow a manifestation of Krishna or somehow coming from Krishna, but if we develop the vision, which I believe is the ultimate vision that Prabhupada wanted us to attain, is not only that of a pure devotee, but the ultimate vision that we want to attain, the ultimate mood that we want to have, is that of the Brajavasis. And they don't just, look at a mountain and think, well, that is the bones of Krishna. When they look at a mountain, they think about Govardhan. When they think about Govardhan, they think about Krishna lifting Govardhan. So that is the ultimate vision that we want to have. How everything is reminding us of Krishna's most intimate qualities, his most intimate pastimes with his devotees. And through reading about devotees as Queen Kunti, we can slowly develop that vision. First, we're seeing through their eyes, and their vision becomes our vision, because it said that you see Krishna through the eyes of love, Premanjali. So when your eyes become decorated with love, then you really, really see Krishna, as in Vrindavan Krishna. So I was thinking about Queen Kunti and how it might be sometimes a bit difficult for us to relate to these personalities. Like, she's a queen to begin with. And I'm aware that there in Africa, there's still some royalties. I know one of our devotees in South Africa, Savasachi, I know he, for instance, he comes from Swazi royalty. So maybe he can relate to, Arjuna being a prince, and maybe someone in the audience also has relatives who are royalty, so you can relate to queens. But I certainly cannot really relate to her if I think about her as a queen, who had children with demigods, and who lived in a palace, and who was incredibly beautiful. It's just not, it's not my reality. But I was thinking about it. If we think about the tribulations that Queen Kunti went through, then maybe we can start relating more to her. I don't know if we can maybe share that in the chat, if anyone can remember what were some of the very challenging circumstances that she faced, even starting from her very young age before she was married. If I think about her life, if there's one theme that really comes through, it's like challenge after challenge after challenge. So I don't know if anyone has got any ideas of what were some of the challenges that Queen Kunti faced.
I can remember as a mother, abandoning the first son, Kana, was very traumatic for her, and pretend he was not her son.
Absolutely. What a trauma at that young age, maybe making a very unwise choice by calling Suryadev, and then having to have that child, and having to go through that pregnancy, secretly, and then having to abandon that child. Definitely a very challenging experience. And I was also just thinking, we often speak about how difficult it is for single mothers to be devotees, but Queen Kunti was a single mother for a very large part of her life. Of course, she had the support of the extended family, but her husband left relatively, early in her life. And then her children, were going through so many difficulties. And if I understand Mahabharata correctly, she was often, living actually with the Kuruvas, while they had this intense animosity against their own sons, always persecuting them, always trying, different ways to harm them or to just get rid of them. So, we see throughout her life that there was actually so many challenges that she faced, so many hardships, and I would say also a lot of pain that she actually went through. And I think if we start thinking about her that way, she becomes more relatable to us, because we also have different challenges depending on our karma. It might come through family, it might come through work, it might come through health, it might just come through our own mind. But we see that this great devotee also went through this. But what is amazing about her is she went through all of this, and then she famously, prayed when Krishna was, about to depart. One of the verses from her prayer was, "I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths." So I think that in itself is so profound. We see a person who has gone through immense suffering, but then she says, "I'll go through it all again, just so that I can, just if I can see Krishna, because seeing you means that I won't see birth and death again." So what a vision, what a vision to come out of so much suffering and to have that, as your conclusion. So when I read the purport, to this verse, what really stuck out for me, was one of the processes of surrender. So I'm just going to read for us, so we're all reminded of what are those 6 processes of surrender. So I'm going to go down. I have extensive notes, and I hope it's going to help me. Okay. So the 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full surrender and humility. So what we read in this, in this purport is that really, the Pandavas exhibited this so much that they had this full conviction that Krishna will give protection, and they accepted only the Lord as their guardian and their master. So I want us to further explore that. But before we do that, I just thought it was good to think about why Prabhupada said we first have to accept those things that are favorable and reject those things that are unfavorable. And then the next step in surrender is to believe that Krishna has all protection. So I was thinking about that. For instance, we are taught that things which are unfavorable are things like gambling and eating meat and having illicit relationships. So therefore we avoid those things. And I was thinking about that recently, that I was very fortunate. I met the devotees quite early in my life, so I was following basically the 4 regular principles already, because I came from a religious family, and I just had to stop eating meat. And I was thinking, I'm so grateful that I met the devotees at such a young age, because by following those principles, I've been protected, from so much potential suffering, for myself and for causing so much suffering to others. So we can see if we are going to reject things that are actually unfavorable, we have taken responsibility on our behalf, not to cause harm to ourselves. But if we were to, for instance, to take intoxication, we couldn't then say, I'm going to just intoxicate myself and then pray that Krishna protects me, because we haven't actually taken, our responsibility first. So I think that is very important for us to know, because sometimes I think there's a term called spiritual bypassing, which means that we use our spiritual philosophy or spiritual principles to excuse ourselves from just taking responsibility for ourselves. But it's clear here, we have to carefully consider, all aspects of our life. Is this favorable or is this unfavorable? And if we've done that sincerely, then we can have the faith that Krishna will actually give us our full protection. So now to explore this theme further, what does it mean that Krishna will give us full protection, and what is the dynamic, because I find it interesting here at the end of the Prabhupada, it seems like Prabhupada almost contradicts himself, because he says, first he says that all the Pandavas, had full faith in Krishna, and Krishna always protected them, and they only went to Krishna for protection. But then he says, such chaste devotees also never ask the Lord for help, but the Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. So that got me thinking, why does Prabhupada say that, the devotees don't even ask for help, but then the Lord gives it? Because we do see, so often that the devotees do ask for help. We see that Draupadi, when she was going to be disrobed, she did call out to Krishna for help. We see that, just before in the Bhagavatam, when Uttara, was going to be affected by the Brahmastra, she again, and the child within her womb was going to be killed. Again, she called out to Krishna. So we see that devotees do call out to Krishna, so many times. We also see that even in Vrindavan, we see that when Nanda Maharaj was going to be swallowed by a snake, even though he's Krishna's father, he called out to Krishna. We see that the gopis, when they were kidnapped, I think the demon was Muchukunda, again, they called out to Krishna. When there's the forest fire and the cowherd boys are distressed, they call out to Krishna. So it's a very common theme. I don't know if we can maybe also share that in the chat. If you can remember any other devotee who was in distress and they called out to Krishna, I think it's just a nice meditation for us to remember these devotees and how they called out to Krishna. And then when we are in distress, also remembering that we should call out to Krishna. So, but for now to continue. So there's this interesting dynamic. On the one hand, Prabhupada says that, the only devotees only rely on Krishna. But on the other hand, he says that, but they don't actually, ask Krishna, but Krishna, Krishna just helps them. So I was reading up about this to understand better and better. And one thing that I found that Prabhupada said, which I think starts illuminating what this means. I'm just going to try and get to that expert that I've got from Prabhupada. So this is from Chaitanya Charitam Lila Madhyam Lila Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 149. A Krishna Bhakta has no desire for his own personal benefit. He is completely protected by the Supreme. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is desireless because Krishna will give him protection in all circumstances. It's not that he accepts any assistance from Krishna. He simply depends on Krishna, as a child depends on his parents. The child does not know how to accept service from his parents, but he is always protected, nevertheless. So I find this beautiful, that for the devotee, they just know that Krishna is going to be there. Like if you're a child and you have very loving parents, you feel very safe because you know they're there. You don't exactly know how your parents are supplying money and how your parents are educating you and how your parents are cooking. But because of their love, you just know that everything you need is going to provide it. So that is the relationship that the devotee has with Krishna. So Prabhupada also says that the essence of this is having that faith. Krishna will protect me. Just like a small child has got full faith in his mother. My mother is there. There is no danger. So I find this very interesting. For instance, if we look at the previous verses, where Uttara is concerned about the Brahmastra, she actually doesn't even pray for her own protection. She actually is just concerned about the child in her womb. She's concerned about Parikshit, and she says to Krishna, like, even if you don't save me, save him. So there we see that mood, that the devotee actually, as Prabhupada said, has no desire. But why does the devotee call out to Krishna in essence? We can get that from the verse that we read earlier from Queen Kunti, because they want to see Krishna. So it's not so much that the devotee cries out to Krishna because they are concerned for their safety in the material world, but in every situation they want to remember Krishna. Now, of course, that is the highest level, and for us, if we are diseased or if a family member of us is in some type of danger, it's going to be normal for us to want to pray to Krishna that somehow they'll be protected and their body will be protected and our body will be protected. That's completely normal, and it's good if we, whenever we're facing a difficulty, we turn to Krishna in that capacity. But at the same time, we should know that ultimately we don't want to only turn to Krishna to save, our material arrangements. Ultimately, when we're in distress, we want to call out to Krishna because in every situation, we just want to see him. Because if we can't see him, if we can remember him, if we can be aware of his presence, then as Queen Kunti said, then we will be able to go to him. So I'm just going to get back. So I find this is a very interesting dynamic, how Krishna is Krishna is asking that we should fully surrender unto him, that we should have the faith that only he is going to protect us, and that we should have the faith that no one else can protect him. And Prabhupada explains that this depends on the degree to which we are devoted to Krishna, because Krishna is present, within everyone's heart. And because he's present within everyone's heart, he is fully aware of what is our consciousness. He's fully aware of, the level of our faith and where that faith is played. Is our faith placed in our own mind, in our own education, in our own, external security arrangement that we have made, or is our faith in him? We're not saying that we shouldn't do all these things. We should educate ourselves, we should be responsible, we should look after our finances, we should look after our family, but at the same time we have to have the faith that ultimately, after I've done my duty, the outcome fully depends on Krishna. And then when we are, to the degree that we are placing our faith in Krishna, he protects us. And I think, because we were speaking about the Pandavas, I would like to share a story about Arjuna, because Prabhupada also writes, I just want to read a little purports about the Pandavas. Okay, 2 little purports. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Verse 13, so a little bit earlier in one of the purports. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has clearly promised that his devotees are never to be vanquished, and he behaves according to the quality or the degree of the devotional service rendered by the devotees. The Pandavas were 100% dependent on the protection of the Lord, although they were all great warriors themselves. But the Lord neglects even the greatest warriors and also vanquishes them in time. When the Lord saw that there was no time for the Pandavas to counteract the Brahmastra of Asvatthama, he took up his weapon even at the risk of breaking his own vow. So we see that there is no reason for us to be resistant to having so much faith in Krishna, because this relationship is completely reciprocal. Like the mood of the devotee is, Krishna, I am yours, but also Krishna, you are mine. And Krishna has the same mood towards the devotees. And the devotee, like the Pandava, or devotees like the Pandavas, when they are going through difficulties, you see, they never even question, like, why am I going through this? You never get a point in Mahabharata where Queen Kunti or any of the Pandavas say, why? We are so dharmic, we are so devout, we are such elevated souls, we are very dear to Krishna. Why are we suffering? No, they just accept it. They just accept that somehow this is Krishna's plan, and somehow in the end it will all turn out well, because Krishna is protecting us regardless of what it looks like on the outside. So on this point, Prabhupada writes, now this is from, I think, also Bhagavatam. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, the Pandavas were placed in so many distressed conditions, but they were never faltering. They never asked Krishna, "My dear Krishna, you are my friend. You are our friend, the Pandavas. Why were we undergoing so much severe tests or difficulties?" No, they never. Because they were confident that in spite of all these difficulties, we shall come out victorious because Krishna is there. Because Krishna is there. This is confidence. This is called Sharanagati. This is surrender. There are 6 points of surrender unto Krishna. One point of surrender is to believe that Krishna will protect me, just like a small child has full faith in his mother. My mother is there, there is no danger. So Prabhupada likes to quote that one. So I wanted to tell one pastime of Arjuna. I was looking for this pastime on the internet, but I couldn't find it. But I heard another devotee tell it. So, and she's a very senior devotee. So I do believe it's a bona fide story from one version of the Mahabharata, and it takes place actually starting with Duryodhana, who was very furious one day, storming up and down in his palace. And Narada Muni, as he often does, happened to come by, and he asked him, Duryodhana, why are you in such a mood, in such a rage? What is disturbing your mind? And then he said, what I just cannot fathom is why Krishna loves that Arjuna so much. In every aspect, I'm his superior. I am more intelligent than him. I am more dharmic than him. I'm a better fighter than him. I'm more powerful than him. Why? Why is Krishna so loyal to the Pandavas and especially always favors Arjuna? And he was just, feeling that this is like unbearable to him. It's such an injustice. So Narada Muni said, well, if you really want to know, I can help you to find out. But then you have to meet me tonight at midnight, and you have to dress as a mendicant, and then we'll go to the Pandavas camp, and I'll arrange so that this will be revealed to you. So Duryodhana wasn't really feeling like dressing up like a mendicant and going out in the middle of the night, but his envy of Arjuna was so intense that he had to find out what is the cause of Krishna's what seemed to be unreasonable amount of affection for Arjuna. So at midnight he was dressed as a mendicant, and he met Narada Muni, and they very quietly went to the Pandava camp, and they sneaked into the Pandava camp, and then Narada Muni took him all the way to Arjuna's tent, and he stopped him outside of the tent, and he said, now Duryodhana, you need to go into the tent, and you need to put your ear to Arjuna's hair. And then Duryodhana felt like, this is just too much. I've got so much envy towards this person, and I've got to go and place my ear towards his hair. It's just like, it's absurd. But again, he was like, this need to, in somehow, become more superior to Arjuna in Krishna's eyes was so intense that he made himself go in, and very, very quietly, he moved next to Arjuna, and he very, very slowly dropped his ear next to Arjuna's. And we know Arjuna had beautiful hair, so he dropped it next to his hair. And what did he hear? He heard Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then it struck him. He realized that Arjuna's whole body, Arjuna's whole being, every part of him was just saturated with love and devotion to Krishna. And therefore, Arjuna was so, so dear. So I think this is very beautiful. And then another pastime, I won't go on too long about Arjuna and Krishna pastimes, but I do love these pastimes, is that when Krishna and Arjuna went to the heavenly planets to fight with Indra, then they were victorious. And afterwards, Indra asked both Arjuna and Krishna what boon they would like. And what did Krishna say? Krishna said, the boon I would like from you, Indra, is that I'll always have Arjuna's association and friendship. So that illustrates to us something about the dynamics between the devotee and Krishna, and why, for the devotee, this process of surrendering and believing that Krishna is going to protect, and that regardless of how much difficulties they go through, Krishna still loves them, and ultimately Krishna is going to come through for them, comes so naturally, because it's like it's reciprocal. Krishna wants to be with the devotee. Krishna lives for his devotees, and the devotee wants to be with Krishna, and the devotee lives for Krishna. So I hope you I hope you like that pastime of Mahabharata. I feel that there's many such jewels in the Mahabharata, which really reveals the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees. I just quickly want to go back to my notes. Okay. Resistance. Okay. Yes, okay. So one point I still also wanted to discuss was that despite hearing these beautiful pastimes of the Lord and his devotees and how dear they are to each other, we still might have resistance towards, surrender, resistance towards believing that Krishna will really protect us and we don't need to go anywhere else, for shelter. So I don't know if anyone feels inspired, you're very welcome to share that in the chat if you feel there's certain reasons why we might be resistant. But I was thinking about this, and it's interesting because we often feel like, okay, I don't want to surrender to Krishna. I don't want to surrender to this process of devotional service. But because of our position, we are always surrendering to someone. And surrendering to Krishna, is the ideal choice, because when we surrender to Krishna, we are actually living according to our inherent nature. So I wanted to share another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam and a purport. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8, verse 47. So firstly, we want to surrender to Krishna because he's beautiful, and none of us can deny that we're attracted to beauty. So the verse, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is an ocean of mercy. Then Prabhupada writes, everyone has to surrender to someone superior. That is always the nature of our living condition. At the present moment, we are trying to surrender to someone, either to society or to the nation, the family, the state, or the government. The surrendering process already exists, but it's never perfect because the person or institution unto whom we surrender is imperfect, and our surrender, having so many ulterior motives, is also imperfect. As such, in the material world, no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, nor does anyone fully surrender to anyone else unless obliged to do so. But here the surrendering process is voluntary, and the Lord is worthy to accept that surrender. The surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord. So the more we can become conscious of Krishna's beauty, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, the more we naturally want to surrender. And we have to, when we feel that resistance towards surrendering, we can always remind ourselves, but if I'm not surrendering to Krishna, even though I'm not knowing it, I'm surrendering, to something or something else. or someone else. And then we can also remind ourselves of the qualities of Krishna, or the names of Krishna. Like, for instance, Krishna is called Artha Bandhu, which means he's the friend of the distressed. He is that one person that's always there for the distressed. It's like, I was thinking about this, like, there's no one in our life who we could contact, at any time, on any day, in any year, in any circumstance, and they'll always be available. But Krishna, it's not like you ever get a message from Krishna if you call out to him that, the person you've dialed is not available right now. Please try again later. We never get a message saying, I'm driving right now, I'll speak to you later. Like, the moment you call out to Krishna, he's there. And there's no one else we can say that about. But Krishna, I mean, he's not even there. He's actually waiting already for us. If we think about, again, going back to Draupadi, when she was disrobed, after the whole ordeal, she asked Krishna, like, Krishna, why did you wait, until I was at breaking point before you supplied the cloth for me? Like, why did you make me suffer? Why didn't you come earlier? Why didn't you just prevent the whole situation? And then Krishna said, I was waiting for you to call upon me. And the moment you called, I manifested. So it's very interesting. Krishna is not only there when we call him, it's like, okay, it takes a couple of minutes, and then, like, ring, and then, like, maybe after some minutes, he like connects. No, Krishna is actually waiting. He's really, like, on call. It's just that we need to actually, take the call. That's the only thing. So, more beautiful qualities of Krishna I would want to share with us, with you, is, there's so many, but I'll just stick to two. So the one is that Krishna is the protector of the surrendered souls. Saranagata Palaka. As the moon distributes its soothing rays both in the courtyard of the king and on the home of the Chandala, Krishna shelters surrendered souls and demons too, if they surrender unto him. Some enemy of Krishna was enlivened with the thought that he need not fear Krishna, because if he simply surrendered unto him, Krishna would give him all protection. One of the 6 symptoms of surrender and devotion is to deeply feel that Krishna is one's sole protector. The Vrajavasis treat Krishna as their child, friend, or lover, but in times of danger they seek his protection alone. When Indra pulverized Raj with torrents of rain, the residents turned to Krishna. He responded by lifting Govardhan hill to shelter them underneath. After Kaliya surrendered to Krishna, the marks of Krishna's lotus feet on Kaliya's hood protected him from the jaws of Garuda. When a huge snake was swallowing Nanda Maharaj, he called out to Krishna, "Help! Nanda Nandan, please come and save me from this danger." On one night during Holy Purnima, Sankachuda, a Pafta demon friend of Kuvera, forcibly abducted the gopis with the desire to enjoy them. In great fear, the gopis called out desperately to Krishna and Balaram for protection. Krishna pursued the demon while reassuring the gopis, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. We are going to smash this demon." Krishna protects all souls, especially those who serve him. Endeavors on the path of devotion never meet with loss. Even a little advancement on this path protects one from the most dangerous type of fear. So I think just one more quality of Krishna, which I think is beautiful to meditate upon, is that he's the well-wisher of the devotees. So again, when we're feeling that resistance to surrender to Krishna, that resistance to believe that he will really protect us, we can meditate upon this quality. So Krishna is Bhakta Surat, which means the devotees are always in his heart and he's always in theirs. Krishna is so easily pleased that he sells himself to someone who offers him a tulsi leaf or a little water in devotion. Krishna is called Bhakta Vatsal because he is especially affectionate to his devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami says that out of love, Krishna showed his favoritism towards his devotee Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna promised not to fight or favor either party, but Bhishma forced Krishna to break his promise. To save Arjuna, Krishna picked up broken chariot wheel and charged Bhishma with the ferocity of a lion. So we see here that that is the love that Krishna has for his devotees. He's even willing to break his own promises. And he's so easily purchased that just with sincere devotion he can be bought. This reminds me of an elderly Vrajabasi lady, which Prabhupada saw was bringing water to wash Devi. I think it might have been Govindaji each morning. And Prabhupada said, just for that service, she would go back to Godhead. She wasn't a great scholar. She wasn't like a well-known person. She didn't give like grand discourses. But she was very dedicated and she did her service very sincerely. And she had that mood again of, Krishna, I'm yours, but you're also mine. So you need me to bring water for you every morning. So I think that is very beautiful. And similarly, as we see that Krishna is willing to break his promises for the devotee, we see that even Srila Prabhupada was willing to, in so many ways, actually bend the rules for us. I remember there was one lecture where Prabhupada said that in order to go back to Godhead, you need to be, I think he said, say 100% pure. And then he saw that the devotees looked like really distressed. It's like 100% pure, we're never going to get 100% pure. And then Prabhupada said, all right, 80% pure. And then he saw that the devotees were still looking really concerned, like, are we ever going to become 80% pure? And then Prabhupada said, I think 60% pure. But still the devotees are concerned, like, are we going to get beyond 50% pure? And then Prabhupada said, he said, don't worry, I've got the back door key to the spiritual world. So in essence, Prabhupada is saying like, oh, right, the standard to go back to Godhead is you have to be 100% pure. But for you, my dear disciples, those devotees who had dedicated their lives to Prabhupada, for them and for us, for everyone who dedicates himself to Prabhupada and his mission, Prabhupada breaks the rules. And he says, I've got the backdoor key to not only the spiritual world, but where? Goloka Vrindavan. So we see that in that way, even the devotee has that quality, the pure devotee has that quality, like, I'll, as an agent of Krishna, I'll break the rules for my sincere followers, for those that give their hearts to me fully. So now to end, I thought we'll go to one last purport from Prabhupada, which I thought was really, really beautiful. I hope everyone else will also find it inspiring. So, as in the beginning of the discussion, I was mentioning that we don't only want to get to the point where we see the difference between matter and spirit. That's only the beginning. We want to get to the point where we actually see and remember Krishna in his most personal qualities and his most personal exchanges with the devotees. So Prabhupada writes here, the ultimate stage of loving affairs is surrender. Why one should surrender to another person unless there is love? Just like a wife surrenders to a husband and the husband protects the wife. This is general duty. So why one man is interested with one woman for giving her all protection, and why one man is surrendered to one woman? What is the basic principle? The basic principle is love. So similarly, our full surrender, full Krishna consciousness can be achieved when we develop our love for Krishna little by little, and then come to perfection. When we come to perfection, then we cannot live without Krishna. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us. In the last stage of his life, he exhibited such manifestation of love that he was dying without Krishna. Without Govinda, I see everything as vacant. So sometimes we've got this experience. If we lose a friend, a son, at that time, everything becomes vacant. Without my son, without my lover, I've got no reason to live. That is practical. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was exhibiting that type of love for Krishna, that he was feeling without Krishna, everything is void. Thus, he taught us personally how to raise oneself to the topmost stage of love of Krishna. That is the ultimate aim and object of life. To see Krishna within the heart, always. So even that level might sometimes seem maybe a little bit unrelatable for us, because we might not actually feel that without Krishna, our life is void and there's nothing. But if we meditate upon it a little deeper, we'll realize that even if we're not conscious of it at every moment, Krishna is, he says in Bhagavad Gita, he's the life force. He's the in and the outcoming breath. Now, at every moment of our existence, like from the moment you came into this world until the moment you leave, like your breath is the one thing that is going to be with you right throughout your entire life. And, you don't even need to gaze outward or see anything. If you just close your eyes for a couple of seconds, you can always connect with your breath. You can always be conscious of your breath. And that breath itself is actually Krishna. So that's just one small example which illustrates that actually all of us are fully dependent on Krishna, like moment for moment, like heartbeat for heartbeat. On a practical level, we couldn't exist without him. And because our breath is so close to us, it's something that we can definitely use to remind ourselves of this fact that without Krishna, my life, my life would really be over. So thank you very much, dear devotees. I do hope you gained some inspiration and also appreciated the many purports from Prabhupada which I shared. I found a lot of value in them, so I do hope you also did. And if I understand correctly now, there is time for questions and discussion and corrections or anything else that's needed. I do see a question in the chat, so maybe I'll start with that one. We are afraid of surrendering because Krishna does not respond immediately when you need him to. That is very good point. So if we go back to that example of Draupadi, Draupadi was holding on to her sari while they were trying to disrobe her, and she was crying out, to first to her husbands, then to the elders, and no one was helping her, but she was holding on to her sari, so she was trying to protect herself. But then when she prayed to Krishna, she threw up her hands in the air. So to do that, it wasn't like before she basically let go of her attempts to protect herself, Krishna couldn't actually step in. So she had to take that leap of faith. So Kadamba Maharaj often does this. I'm not going to do it now because you won't see me, but he does this play where he illustrates how there's a man who is fixing a roof, and then he slips and he falls and he almost falls off the roof, but just in time he grabs onto the edge of the roof and he's hanging, and then he's like, oh God, please save me. And then to his surprise, God says, yes, I'll save you. And then he says, thank you. And then God says, but you've got to let go, I'll catch you. And then the man says, can't you catch me first? So it's interesting. Sometimes we want Krishna to first catch us, but we're holding on, and Krishna can't actually catch us before we let go. So that is what is faith. Faith is that letting go process and trusting that it's all right to fall because Krishna will catch you. So then the question underneath that, does Krishna not act like a mother to a child? Why wait until we call out to him, since we are his children and not karmis? Yes, we are. I mean, everyone is Krishna's children. Everyone is dear to Krishna. So, like Krishna is called Bhuta Bhavana, so he is the master of all living beings. So it's not only that if you you don't have to be like a Hare Krishna to be dear to Krishna, because you exist, you're dear to Krishna. But Krishna responds to the desire that we have, and he responds to our level of faith. That, like Prabhupada wrote in that purport in the Bhagavad Gita, like, because Krishna is present within the heart of each living being, he responds to our position. So we see that any person that is pious, or Bhagavad Gita actually says that if someone is pious and they're in distress, they will also call out to God. And that means they're pious. But they are turning to God basically to save them. It's like, I'm in distress and now you should come to save me. But we see with the pure devotees that they also call out to Krishna when they're in distress, but they call out to Krishna because they always want to remember Krishna and they always want to be with Krishna. So it's like both are calling out to Krishna, but the nuances are different. So the degree to which Krishna is going to get involved in our lives and really be like that mother to the child depends firstly on the degree that we are going to be that child. So the more we cultivate that mood of full dependence on Krishna, the more he'll just show up in our lives. Like we have the example of, I'm not sure if it's Rupa Goswami or Sanatana Goswami, I think it was Rupa Goswami in Vrindavan, sitting in the sun, in the heat, without any protection. I think it's Rupa Goswami. And then I think Radharani herself came and hold, up her veil to protect him. I hope I'm remembering the pastime correctly. So he didn't ask. She just came. And one of them as well, Krishna bought them buttermilk once as well. So we see that they didn't ask. Krishna just came. But at the same time, it was their complete identity. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. We don't want to only call to Krishna when we're in distress. If we live our life constantly meditating upon the fact that we're dependent on Krishna, then he will be that loving parent to us. Okay, so I'm just going to go up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj has a question in the chat room below that.
Yes, I'm seeing here. Anuradha just said, Hare Krishna, my sincere gratitude for such a beautiful class. Thank you, Anuradha. It's only possible with the blessings of the Vaishnavas. Then another one, thanks so much, Mother, for your soothing words. You really raised my spirit today. I'm very happy I could raise your spirit, and I hope that, we can all be together and raise each other's spirits. Being here has definitely raised my spirits too. Okay, here's another message from Chitra. Okay, it's not a question. Thank you for being present here as well. Here's a question. Praji Paribraja Kamaraj. I'm not saying your name right, Maraj. Please forgive me. And Maraj is asking me a question. I feel like my grandfather is asking, like the grandfather is asking the grandchild the question, but Maraj, you're asking, so I have to answer. Okay. Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. I pray that you're well. So nice to see you after such a long time. Can you tell me why Krishna is saying Aham Bhakta? Probably know. Why? What is the meaning? He is saying that he becomes enslaved by the Supreme Lord, but somehow he becomes enslaved. How is it possible? Hare Krishna. Okay, so why does Krishna become enslaved by the devotee? I hope so. Why does Krishna become enslaved enslaved, because Krishna likes to become enslaved. we see in our own lives that we derive the greatest joy from relationships which are the most intimate, where there is the most love. So I mean, Prabhupada tells a story of someone wanting to go see a prime minister, and then his secretary kept on telling this important person, who was like something like a diplomat, that you can't see the prime minister because he's busy. And the person kept on waiting and waiting, and he had an appointment with the prime minister. So at some point he got quite frustrated, and he felt like, he's also quite a significant person. Even though this is the prime minister, you shouldn't keep him waiting if he's got an appointment. So then he decided he's just going to go into his office and find out, like, what is he doing? So when he came in, he saw that the prime minister was on all fours, and his grandson was on his back. And he was like, he was like, the prime minister was like playing like he's a horse, and his grandson was just riding on his back. So we can say that the prime minister became like enslaved to his grandson, and that gave him a great joy. It probably gave him much greater joy than any of his governmental duties. Probably gave him much greater joy than achieving that position of being prime minister. Why? Because it was love. It was sweet. He was willing to go on all fours. I mean, what a position to be on, like you're president, prime minister of some grand country, and there you are on all fours on the carpet. So I think we can see, through that example, that love, intimate exchanges gives us the greatest satisfaction. And when you're in that position when you're really willing to give yourself, to another, then that is the most satisfying. Krishna enjoys that. He enjoys it when Mother Yashoda binds him to some extent, because it shows him that she has so much affection for him. There's also a pastime, or not a pastime, an occurrence in Mahabharata where someone walks in on Krishna and Arjuna, and they're sleeping on one bed. And I mean, that's in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna also even says, we've eaten together, we've slept on one bed together, we've been so intimate. So Krishna and Arjuna are sleeping on one bed, and they're sleeping like head to foot. And usually that's not a way you want to sleep, with someone, like with their feet in your face. But Krishna and Arjuna are lying on the bed, and Krishna has got Arjuna's feet on his chest, and Arjuna's got Krishna's feet on his chest, and that's how they sleep. And we see so that is what Krishna really enjoys the most, if he can become sold out, to his devotees. Like Prabhupada said earlier, he's so sold out to Arjuna that when Arjuna is in danger, he doesn't bat an eyelid to break his own word. He's just willing to jump off the chariot and start fighting to protect Arjuna. So I hope that answers the question, Maharaj, but as I said, I feel like a grandchild needing to answer my senior. So
Thank you. We have a question from Saradiya from US. Saradiya Prabhu.
yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Saradiya Mataji. Thank you so much for the class.
Thank you, Prabhu. It looks like you're a doctor working in a hospital.
No, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a small nurse. Again, thank you for coming to our forum and bless us with your presence. If I should act as a devil's advocate, I have a question for you from Srila Prabhupada's purpose. That is the last two sentences of the purpose, starting from one should not therefore look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods. But one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. As we speak, there are some devotees who do not accept to take any help from any mortal human being, because to them, they cannot help. Only Krishna can help. And so even if they are sick, there is no need for them to take medication because Krishna is going to help them. Now, what do you say to such a devotee? If a devotee says, Krishna is going to protect me, and so I do not need to take medication even when I'm sick. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I appreciate the question. It's always wonderful to have questions that help us think deeper. So there's one story that I think Prabhupada also used to tell about a man that was caught up in a flood, and the flooding was gradually, increasing and increasing, and he saw, many people had boats and they were going past, and as the water was rising higher and higher and almost like, going like above the walls of the houses, a boat came and said, can we help you? You can come with us. We can save you from the flooding. And he said, no, God will save me. And then the flooding continued and he climbed onto the roof and more boats came past. And again, they asked him, do you want to come with us? We can save you. And he said, no, God will save me. And then the water kept on rising and it was like, almost now reaching the top of the roof, but he could still stand. And another boat came by and they said, you can come, please come. The water is rising and you'll drown soon and we can save you. And he said, no, God will save me. So this man died in the flood, drowning, unfortunately. But then he was a pious soul, so he did end up in heaven, and he had, suppose, like some type of darshan of probably, I don't know if it was Krishna, but he had a darshan. And then he was like kind of disappointed, and he said, but God, I had so much faith that you would come and save me from that flood. Why didn't you save me? And then God told him, but I sent you like boatman after boatman. I send you those opportunities. And, you didn't actually, respond to that. I was trying to save you. And you didn't make use of the help, I was sending you. So I think as devotees, we have to be, broad-minded. And we have to understand that Krishna might not save us as in like manifesting as, Krishna in 2-arm or 4-armed forms and, coming and arranging things in our lives. But Krishna might send help in so many other ways. Krishna might send help through other devotees. He might send help through our family. He might send help in any way because Krishna is controlling everything. So I think when we hear such points, like we have to only depend on Krishna, we have to see it in context with other, with other points in our philosophy. Like, for instance, the point that Krishna is the supreme controller and Krishna is arranging everything. So if we take that into consideration, then when help is offered to us or help is available, then we can see it, this is coming from Krishna. And I think that is also why Prabhupada said that the first 2 items of surrender is so important. Accepting what is favorable for our devotional service and rejecting which is unfavorable for our devotional service. So if someone is, for instance, if you are, suffering from a disease and there is a good doctor available and they're offering to give you treatment, it will probably be favorable for your devotional service, because we all know that if our bodies are unwell, or even if we have a severe mental disturbance, then that definitely affects our devotional service. So for most devotees, it would probably be unwise to reject the help of a doctor. But what it means to fully depend on Krishna is that Krishna is giving this doctor the intelligence which he can use to treat me. Krishna is also, he says, he is the medicinal herb. So Krishna is the potency of everything. So if the doctor can treat me, it's by Krishna's mercy. If the medicine work, it's by Krishna's mercy. But we should still, always be responsible and take the necessary step to look after ourselves and to look after others, to look after, whatever Krishna has ordained to be ours. And then after we've done that, we depend on Krishna. Because we also see the example, we had a nice prayer from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a very responsible person. I mean, he had a position of a magistrate. I'm struggling a bit with the English today. And he also had quite an extensive family. And he did do everything to take care of them and to play that very, important role in the government. But then he doesn't say that I leave my family's care and I just leave it up to you. But he says that I'll trust that ultimately, their well-being is in your hands. So he's doing everything he needs to, but with the faith that ultimately he's depending on Krishna. I hope that answers your question, Sahadev Prabhu. Thank you so much for
Yes,
for
thank you
asking
so
me.
much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Okay, so I
Our
see.
next question, Mother, please, is Mother Raja Lila Devi.
Oh,
Mother Raja Lila, please.
my mother's gonna ask me a question.
Haribo Saradiya, my love.
Hare Krishna, dear Mother Raj Leela. So wonderful that you came and give me your blessings to speak.
No, I came so that I can be one of those persons that's learning from you. I'm just it's just so sweet that you're here on this platform, and yeah, I'm just really happy that I can be here to listen. That was such a beautiful answer you gave just now to Sahadev Prabhu, and it just reminded me of one of the themes you were talking about, which is spiritual bypassing, and how prominent that is within within our devotee community, that we tend to want to just bypass the things that are important in living. And so that was a point. And then I wanted to ask a question about one of the points. You made so many beautiful points in your class today. And one of them that stuck out is the theme of loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees. Now, given that we have, so many, and you cited so many references of these loving exchanges with Krishna and his devotees, why do you think that we need to spend so much time developing initiatives for devotees to have loving exchanges amongst themselves?
So the question is, if given that we have so many examples that Krishna has loving exchanges with devotees and the devotees have loving exchanges with each other, why as a society do we struggle so much to have loving exchanges, and we have to create situations or initiatives for devotees to have loving exchanges?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, why do I think that is? That's a very deep question, Mata. I'm going to try and see if Krishna can give me some insight and inspiration to answer. I mean, I think maybe the safest is if I just speak from my own experience, because I cannot. If I speak from my own experience, it's maybe not the absolute truth, but at least it's a relative truth. And I would say from my own experience, I would say that we struggle to have loving exchanges with devotees, often because of a lot of fear. I hear so often that devotees say, and I've seen this in my own life, that they're feeling lonely, they want to connect, they long for a devotee community, but at the same time, because they've experienced hurt, because we all get hurt in relationships. It's like, now Bob Marley said that people are going to make you suffer, so you got to just choose the ones that are worth suffering for. So it is unavoidable in relationship that there's going to be some difficult experiences, because we're all fallible, human beings. And I think often when we get hurt, then we put up a lot of guards. So while we actually long so much to be close to people, I think a lot of us struggle because we do not trust them and we do not trust ourselves that we could be close and it could be more beneficial and beautiful than painful and damaging. So I think that is why I know you teach I teach nonviolent communication, and I know that Mother Rambura has got this huge initiative called Karuna Care, and I mean both you and her are doing so much work to teach devotees to understand their emotional needs, to communicate better, to heal, I suppose, wounds. So I think more than I think if we want devotees to have these more loving exchanges, we have to understand that like being a devotee is just not like understanding the basic Krishna conscious philosophy and understanding you're not the body and understanding that Krishna is the source of everything and understanding like Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva and Shiva Tattva, and it's not about that. It's like being a devotee is really like a very profound state of consciousness where we are constantly, as your Guru Maharaj said, we become love finders, and we are looking at each person and thinking, are they expressing love or are they expressing a need for love? And in my behavior, am I expressing love or am I expressing a need for love? And if I'm expressing a need for love, what is blocking this exchange of love? So I think this internal work is unavoidable and essential, for each devotee. So I think it is very glorious if the organization creates opportunities for devotees to have intimate exchanges. But if devotees haven't done that internal work to overcome their fears, to acknowledge some of the pain that they've gone through and to actually go through a healing process, then we're gonna continue to struggle. And that is my personal experience, because in Kali Yuga we see that more and more people come from very dysfunctional families. So more and more people have dysfunctional patterns of communication. They have what we call, psychologists talk about, an attachment style. So that's how you relate and bond with people. So less and less people have what we call a secure attachment style. And people have ways of bonding and connecting with people that are not healthy. So I think that we need to acknowledge those things, and we need to, on a personal level, be willing to, with Krishna's help and with the guidance of devotees, work through those things and understand that unless we do that, I think it's going to always be a blockage on our devotional path. Because I think Prabhupada said that 90% of your devotional advancement depends on your association with Vaishnavas. And if we always just associate with Vaishnavas, we just say like, Hari Bol, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm good. We're never gonna advance. We're never gonna get to that point of really revealing our hearts and having other people reveal their hearts to us. We're never gonna get very intimate with devotees. And I mean intimate, I mean like 6 loving exchanges really coming from the heart. So that is my answer, Mother. I'm not sure if it's sufficient, but it's my my humble attempt based on my realizations. I'm just gonna go up in the chat. I think.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I wanted to appreciate that you took it to yourself. I want to appreciate that you didn't engage in giving us some sastric answer, that you took it to your own personal understanding. And your personal experience in dealing with this topic, that is so very important. And for me, that was a real value. The other point I wanted to make was you know, that the Gita values, you know, one of the Gita values is the Samadarshana, seeing with equal vision. And in your answer, what I heard you say is as long as we are challenged by fear, we will not have trust. And so the challenge that we have is overcoming this fear so that we can develop more trust, so that we can really enter into this theme that you're sharing with for all of us today. So I want to thank you so very much, my dear Saradiya.
Thank you so much, Mother Rajlila. I always feel so much love and support from you. One thing that I wanted to add is that I think this is a manifestation of spiritual bypassing. And I'm really not saying this is like a critique, you know, to other devotees. I'm just saying it as experience, you know, from my own life, because I've been trying to be a devotee for 15 years, and I feel like, you know, I'm so far from it. So I kind of feel, I can speak from that experience. And I think that sometimes we think that, you know, we should just chant Hare Krishna, and then, you know, all our like mental, emotional issues will just go away. And I think that in one sense, I mean, you can correct me, but I think that might not be true, because Krishna reciprocates with our desires. So unless we actually desire to, for instance, say, overcome our trust issues, or overcome our tendency to isolate ourselves, or overcome our tendency to not want to be close to other people, that's not going to change. And if we desire to overcome such issues which are blocking us from coming closer to other devotees, and ultimately blocking us coming closer to Krishna, because I was thinking about this, like, if you cannot, like, a lot of people struggle with accepting love. Now, if you cannot accept love from another devotee, you're not going to be able to accept love from Krishna either, because you cannot accept love when you believe you're not worthy of love. So if you believe I'm not worthy of love, you're not going to feel Krishna's love either. So if, for instance, you know, you have this blockage that you really struggle to, you know, love people and to be loved, or to accept love, then if you desire to really be purified, but then Krishna will reveal to you how you can. Maybe Krishna will reveal to you should go to a devotee counselor, or you should join a certain, you know, program, or do a certain course. So then, yes, it's through the chanting, because maybe if you desire, you know, you desire, Krishna, I want these blockages to be removed so I can come close to you. Then you chant, then Krishna reveals. But I think we need to think about this as dynamic. And if you're not willing to do something about an issue, say you've come from a family and, you know, it's been very emotionally abusive, and you've got horrible communication, you know, habits, then if you really desire to change it, you would be willing to take a communication course and put in the time and the effort to change it. So if you're not willing to do that, you're not actually desiring to improve it. So then you can't just say, no, I'm just going to chant, and then, you know, I'm going to become better at communication, because then I feel that you're not really sincere. So I think we need to really take responsibility, you know, for our psychology. We need to take responsibility for the blockages we know we have, and then pray to Krishna to help us overcome it, but understand that helping us to overcome it might mean he'll just send us the opportunities, and then we have to make use of those opportunities to actually transform. And there's so many opportunities these days that I think, you know, we can be very grateful for. So I'm just scrolling down. I think there might be some more questions or comments. No, I'm not seeing more questions.
Thank you very much.
There was one more comment. Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, you're trying to read the text message on the chat room. Yeah, there's a few comments from Mother Kamania's commenting on the chat room.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Actually, may I say I had commented in response to one devotee who was suggesting that if we the comment was a collective attempt to reach out and share Srila Prabhupada's love and compassion with the world will automatically strengthen the bonds of friendship between devotees. And I think that's a really beautiful point, because by coming together in service, we come closer. And additionally, I feel that And it's exactly what you've just talked about. Until we can reach out in love and compassion and support to each other, how effective can we actually be in serving Lord Chaitanya's mission of reaching out to the whole world? So as we know, historically in ISKCON, there's been a lot of focus outward, bringing in quote unquote, making devotees, making the movement larger. And then at the same time, there's so many slipping out the side doors and the back doors. I'm very encouraged and grateful to see, especially during this past year and a half of lockdown, that so many devotees have been coming online and making themselves available. And I had no idea before that there were so many resources available to us. For example, Mother Vraj Leela is so expert in teaching, for example, nonviolent communication, and so many other devotees are reaching out more and more to give us the tools so that we can take care of each other and more focus on devotee care. I never heard about devotee care before. It's like, for me, it didn't exist in 16 plus years. So if we forget about each other, we're going to lose each other. We have to take care of our family, as well as reaching outwards. So I'm really grateful to you, Saradiya, for all the beautiful points you made. So many. My hand hurts from taking notes from your class. Yeah, so this was just in my heart to share. And thank you, Mother Vraj Leela, for being here and for your wisdom. You are such a role model for us.
This is our family, and especially in Africa, this is a family.
Thank you so much, Mother Rashida. I'm very happy to be here. I feel very honored to be with my African family. And I have to just give a lot of credits to Kamania as well. Kamania is someone that's always giving me a lot of support and unwavering, unconditional love and affection. So I'm very grateful for that. And I also want to just say Keshava Prabhu's point was very beautiful, because he's saying a collective attempt to reach out and share Prabhupada's love and compassion with the world, automatically strengthening the bonds of friendship between devotees. So I think it's very beautiful, because he doesn't say like just the philosophy, but he actually goes to the essence of why Prabhupada wanted to spread Krishna consciousness, and it's out of love and compassion. And if that is our motive, like we share love and compassion amongst each other, and then the overflow of our sadhana, the overflow of our loving exchanges becomes our outreach, it will be very inspiring, and people would just want to be part of the community. So thank you, Keshava Prabhu, for that beautiful point. There was one point, it wasn't a question, but I just wanted to acknowledge it. Kush said, Hare Krishna, Nidhi, please accept my humble obeisances. Our anarthas always prevent us from surrendering to Krishna. Today was such a tough day for me, but your class rescued me. I'm very happy you could be here, and I'm very happy that the class was meaningful to you. And it's true that our anarthas prevent us from surrendering to Krishna's, but a bigger problem than our anarthas is our desire, because we see that wherever we go, whatever we do, the underlying cause is always desire. So even if you come like from the most sinful background, and you have like lived the most degraded lifestyle, and you have so many anarthas, if you desire to come closer to Krishna, the stronger you desire it, the more Krishna will just remove those anarthas. So I think we should not give our anarthas more strength than our faith. So we should know, yes, anarthas are there and anarthas are problematic, but anarthas are no match for Krishna. And Krishna is fully present within his holy name. And even if we feel that then, but maybe we chant, with offenses, then we chant Panchatattva mantra, and that's our ultimate grace. And Lord Chaitanya says that if you simply remember him somehow, a blind man can see and a lame man can cross mountains and a dumb man can recite poetry. So if all else fails, remember Lord Chaitanya, and your anarthas will be something of the past soon. So Deepa, I do see you have your hand up. So if you have a question, please share. I'm just scrolling down to give if there's more questions. It's not just comments.
It's not really a question. I just want to say, Hare Krishna, I could really feel your love for Krishna. And it's so nice to see that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Deepa. Deepa is always also very supportive. I very much appreciate your presence. So, Keshava Prabhu is making another comment. I'm trying to keep up with the comments. I'm struggling. Bhakti Tirtha Swami at his public address at Rath Yatra in South Africa, referring to the multicultural background of the community of devotees, explained that because of all devotees were united in purpose, we were able to accomplish so much. Yes, thank you so much for another very inspiring comment, Keshava Prabhu. That is, that is it. I mean, I remember this verse. I remember when I read it for the first time, I was really struck. And then I can't remember exactly what the verse is, but it's like the fighting between two rams and a conflict between husband and wife. It's also insignificant that it just passes. There's a verse like that somewhere in Bhagavatam. And I remember Prabhupada was writing there, and then he was saying that as devotees, we need to see all our differences as very insignificant. And we have to always keep Krishna at the center. And if we keep Krishna at the center, so what will please Krishna? What will please Prabhupada? What will please the devotee community? Then not our basic needs, but our kind of like all our personal little preferences and likes and dislikes becomes increasingly insignificant. And I think one key aspect of this is a new concept I learned in psychology, is that for any relationship to work, and that's not just like a marriage, but a community, family, we need to have a collective identity. And I think that's often what we lack. We think about us, and then there's like the temple, there's this sangha or that sangha, but we don't have an identity where it's like, the group and their needs, and their well-being is just as important as mine, because I'm part of this group. It's like our family. So if one person in my family is suffering, I'm suffering because it's our family. So we need that collective identity. And maybe we cannot have like collective identity where we feel like the whole international society for Krishna consciousness we're really part of, but at least within our own community we can have our sangha, or we can have our family, and we can have a collective identity there, and really start valuing the needs and the well-being of that little community we have just as much as not that we sacrifice our own needs, but that it's in balance. And then if we have a group, and all the individuals in that group start having that consciousness, it can be very beautiful. And as you say, then we can achieve so much. Then we can achieve so much greatness. And we see that in the spiritual world. Like one thing that really struck me when I read about Vrindavan for the first time, it's like in Vrindavan, the birds are singing for Krishna. And they sing, and that's what they live for, is to sing for Krishna. But then at some point, the birds, they realize that they've been singing for so long that Krishna is not really hearing the bees. So then the birds become quiet so that the bees have an opportunity to buzz. And then they please Krishna through their buzzing. So that's Vrindavan. Like the birds are not thinking, but we sing so much nicer than the bees buzzing. They're little and they're insignificant, and what do they imagine? No, they're thinking that no, they should serve Krishna because Krishna is the center, and they're thinking, but Krishna also wants their service, and that is Vrindavan. And Vrindavan, as we know, it's a state of consciousness. So that's what we want to do. Not like, because the birds are not thinking like we shouldn't sing. we're insignificant, we're useless. No, the birds think that we love Krishna, we want to sing, but the bees should also have an opportunity to just buzz for Krishna, hum for Krishna. So that's what we want, that Vrindavan consciousness, like always thinking, how can I serve and please Krishna, but how can I also create opportunity and support for someone else to serve according to their capacity, and how can I give an opportunity for them to be glorified? And Prabhupada did this. Like when Prabhupada was in India, he would ask his disciples to speak, he would ask his disciples to lead kirtan, always thinking about how he could give other people opportunity to, to practice their Krishna consciousness and to serve. So I'm not seeing questions, I'm just seeing comments. Keshava Prabhu, many people are appreciating that you remind us of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Yes, Bhakti Tirtha Swami was and is an incredible blessing for us. And I think that we need his guidance, as you say. And he's always present, within his books, within his classes, and we should just take shelter of him. So, I can share this. Maybe Keshava Prabhu said we need him more now than ever. So I very unfortunately, this is one of the most tragic things of my life. I met the devotees like the year after Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left the planet. So I didn't know that, and I found some of his books. There's some of the first books I read after I read Bhagavad Gita, but it was published for some reason in South Africa under another name he was known by, and it was just Krishna Pada Swami. And so I read, I think, the whole Spiritual Warrior series, and I was so inspired, by Maharaj. I was convinced he was my spiritual master, and I heard that Bhakti Tirtha Swami had left the planet, but I didn't know it was the same person because the book said Krishna Pada. So when I found out that Bhakti Tirtha Swami was Krishna Pada, I was absolutely devastated, like beyond words devastated, because I was like, he's my guru and he's left already, and it was just like I was broken. So I was years later I was living in Mayapur, and he's got his samadhi there, and I used to go and I used to pray at his samadhi because I felt like you felt, like we need him. I wasn't actually praying much. I was crying, like I was like really like crying my eyes out, and I was just like, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, why did you leave so early? Like, I need you, we need you, the world needs you. I was like really, 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 really devastated. And I was just like crying and crying for basically every time I used to go. And I remember sometimes devotees would see me and they would ask me, like, did something happen? Did a relative pass away? And I'd be like, no, I'm just like missing Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And then many years later, actually only last year, so it was about like 7 years later, I came into contact with several of Bhakti Tirtha Swami's very glorious disciples, like Mother Raj Leela. So now I've got Mother Raj Leela's association. I also met a very wonderful disciple from him, Bhuta Bhavana, who's in the UK, and I'm sure many of you know, and Shruti Shakti, who is also in the UK. And they are some of the devotees that I would say are like my key sources of inspiration. So I can see that Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he came, he manifested in my life. So, Bhakti Tirtha Swami is not limited, by his physical presence in the world. And if we feel we need him and we keep on praying, he'll come. He'll come in many ways. So thank you. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mataji. I've heard so much about Saradiya, Mataji, but I think it is, whatever I've heard is such an understatement of your personality. It is wonderful. I'm so blown out with this class, and I think I'll have to listen again and again to this class. I have to download it on YouTube and listen again and again, because this is a beautiful class, well presented. And it's shocking to me because it's surprising to hear that you never even actually met Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, because I was just feeling the vibes of his personality in your presentation. You're speaking so much as if Bhakti Maharaj was the one speaking, because his mood is always devotees, loving exchange, and you were speaking so much on that aspect. Thank you so much, Mataji. We're very grateful for this presentation, and we look forward to seeing you more and more again.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'm really so grateful to connect with all these devotees. I've had this desire to connect more with devotees, in Africa, because, obviously my ancestors, went from Africa, but my family has been here for so many generations. I definitely have a connection with Africa. And yes, I've attended the Sangha a couple of times, and I always appreciated the mood of the devotees so much. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I will come back if the devotees want me to come back. I'll always come back. I think that is the that is the appropriate etiquette. But yes, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I regard, although I never met him in person, I still regard Maharaj as like a Shiksha Guru. And I can't show you. You can see my you can see my little library there, and you can see on the top it's like Bhagavatam, and then you can't see it, but then it's CC, and then there's Bhakti Tirtha Swami's books. So I feel that Maharaj gave himself like fully in his lectures and in his books, like he holds nothing back. And I feel that, in that way, he's so present, in our lives. And yeah, just touches so many people every day.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji. I think at this point, we'll bring the class to an end. We'll allow you to engage in some other service. I would request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute at this point. Let us chant loudly one powerful Hare Krishna mantra to appreciate Mother Saradiya for coming to give this class.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram.
Haribo. Oh, glories to Saradiya, Rasa, Devi, Dasi.
Yeah.
All glories to the assembled.
Jai.
Krishna.